On one point of view, what was in Knesset is the launching of a new lobby, Knesset lobby, which will deal with anti-Semitism, or I would say anti-Jewishness or anti-Jews, or whatever, because today anti-Semitism is also against other Semites, which Arabs are also, as you know, Semites. Yet it's actually today anti-Semitism is restricted to Jews, although we are the minority within all the Semites. Arabs are the majority, yet anti-Semitism is dedicated to us. In other things like this, and other things like this. So this was the lobby, which was launched on Tuesday, 2 days ago, to deal with anti-Semitism. And I claim that hatred against Jews is something which was not invented in the 20th century, 21st century. This is something which accompanies us through history. I think already the destruction of the temple by the Romans in the year of 70 was motivated by hatred against Jews, which was there before Christianity became the religion of the Middle East. It happened 300 years later. So definitely hatred against Jews was always, and don't forget Pharaoh in Egypt, who threw to the Nile all the boys who were born. It was also not because he loved us so much. So definitely we Jews are, I would say, acquainted or used to be hated, and we developed what we call in Hebrew an elephant skin to face it and to deal with this. We are not in a panic because of this. We look around to see where it is safe to live, as we did through 2,000 years of exile. This is why Jews always lived under suitcases. Sorry. And then, whenever the situation was too dangerous and the earth was shaking under our feet, we just took the suitcases and we moved to other places which were safer. Unfortunately, the 20th century proved that it's not enough to run away, because sometimes you can run away from Poland to Romania or to Hungary and you will be caught and brought to Auschwitz, even if you ran away to other places. So, as a conclusion, but not only from the Holocaust, but as a conclusion which accompanied our lives for centuries, we yearned to go back to our land and to renew our sovereignty and our independence and our state and our life as Jews, mainly because here nobody persecutes us or supposed not to persecute us, and this is our refuge, our place, our home. And now, as living in our land, we are like every other nation in the world which lives on its own soil. However, what we found that unfortunately too many Muslims and others cooperate in Jew hatred, although they don't see Jews. Look, there are cities in Poland, for example, which no Jew lives there. Yet, you can see slogans on the walls, Jews out. No Jews. Jews are out. Yet, Jews out. Okay? Or things like this. Or you see a swastika being drawn on Jewish graves and so forth. So definitely, even those Jews who are already dead for who knows how long cannot escape from the hatred of Jews, which is directed against dead Jews as well as living ones. So, and what we see today in the Islamic world, the hatred of Jews is much more than it was before, because now it is amplified by the media. Because today, it's a difference if you, there is a difference if you say something against Jews when you sit in a mosque. How many people will hear you? 100, 200, 300? Okay. But if you sit on the TV station, which is a very modern device, how many people watch you, especially if you talk in Al Jazeera? 100 million, 200 million, 300 million? Okay? So this is the ratio of watching Al Jazeera, especially in certain hours. So the quantity becomes a quality. And now, Jew hatred in the Islamic world is amplified by the mass media. Today also you can find it in the social media, in the internet. So now Muslims, since they see Jews as descendants of swines and apes, this idea today is a common idea all over the Islamic world, although 50 years ago it was known only by clerics. Now everybody knows it thanks to the mass media, which was invented in the West, of course. So now those media were invented in the West serve as a vehicle to spread Islamism all over the world on the back of Jews and Christians as well, because both are infidels according to those zealots Islamists. So now the question is, how do we face it? And this was actually the lobby, how to face the anti-Semitism today, which is today is a combination of classic anti-Semitism, which was in Europe, and modern anti-Semitism, which is amplified mainly by the Arab media and in the Islamic media as well. So today they're combined, they are cooperating, and you see this weird cooperation between the far left and the Islamists, who cooperate both in order to undermine the system wherever they are, the governing system, which they share the hatred to. And this is why the Jews, as part of the system, who were always with the system because they never tried to challenge the system, and they are identified with the system because the system protected the Jews from in many places. Now, hating the system means also hating the Jew. So, and this hatred against the system is shared by the far left and the Islamists. So they cooperate on this thing, although the far left are, let's say, permissive, and the Islamists are not. Definitely they are different, but when it comes to activity and hatred against the system, here they are cooperating and combining their efforts. So now, what can be done about this? My approach is that, okay, you can talk in the media, you can try to educate them, you can try to approach them, you can try to talk to them, you can try everything. If you think that you're going to succeed, you are too optimistic and too naive. What can be done is to base our rights as Jews and Israelis on the judicial rights, which we still have as human beings. We can issue claims to all kinds of courts and other tribunals in the world, human rights and states courts, wherever you can issue a claim against banks who finance anti-Semitism, against banks who facilitate terrorism. And there are some cases, especially in the States, which today are in the courts because of supporting terrorists and helping killing people. So the families can issue complaints against those banks, and to claim that those banks knew about what they do for many years and still they were cooperating with these jihadists, and therefore we are killed. So the American banks should be should be accountable for what they did in order to facilitate the terrorism against Israel. Today there is a case against the Bank of China in New York, and the Bank of China knew clearly that they are facilitating terror against Israel. And now there are problems because the government of China squeezed Netanyahu not to cooperate with this court case, and not to send the Israeli witnesses who went all the way to China to warn the Chinese about this thing, because the government of China doesn't want that the Bank of China in the States will have to pay who knows how many billions or millions as compensation to those Israeli citizens who were killed by terrorists financed by Hamas through the Bank of China. So this is actually what definitely courts are still with us. Courts are still objective to large extent, and this is why the courtroom actually is the arena where we Jews and Israelis should fight anti-Semitism, whenever and wherever we can issue a case which is which can stand in court, like the terrorism issue in New York and the Bank of China. So whenever any body, means a government or a government agency or an NGO or a bank or a company or any legal body who can be sued in order to stop it and to deter others from promoting anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic activities like terror, we should go after them in the courts, issue complaints, and open files in the courts in order to make sure that they don't function, or they know that they have this price to anti-Semitism, especially if it's translated to terror. Second thing is, since there is today a great assault on Israel about the so-called occupation of the West Bank of Judea and Samaria, we should also pursue our rights through the courtroom, basing our claims to these areas, which were the birthbed of the Jewish nation 3,000 years ago. We should claim, or we should pursue our rights through the courtrooms, basing on documents which are the basis of the international law, meaning the San Remo Convention decisions of April 1920. Second, the mandate over this area, which was formulated in 1923 by the League of Nations, on the Anglo-American Agreement of 1924. These documents are the basis, the profound basis of the international law, and later it became the basis of the United Nations when they started functioning after the Second World War. And since everything which was in power, every law, every regulation which was taken by the League of Nations was adopted by the United Nations, today the United Nations should take the San Remo documents and the mandate as a precedent and a basis to the Israeli and the Jewish claim to Judea and Samaria, because nothing which was accepted by the United Nations later cannot be considered as legal, because it contradicts those documents. We should base our claims on this and go to court, to the international court, to Hague, or wherever we can issue a claim against anyone, any body, state department, or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or even personalities in the world who act against the international decisions of those days. We should take them to court, because there we can win. Means that we can push back all the anti-Semitism, which is masked by activities against Israel and Zionism, which actually is anti-Semitism, and to push it back by the courts, basing our claims on the international documents. And look, we also have the Bible, but the Bible is not a judicial document. But definitely those documents which are there, nobody denies that they are there. We should emphasize our right over them and go forward to push backward all the claims against us regarding the land of Israel, which unfortunately too many people, especially in the Islamic world, want to take all the way from us, because for them Tel Aviv is an occupied place no less than Nablus and Hebron. So this is what I tried to convey to those who came to this conference, that yes, there is an anti-Semitism, we cannot deny it, and it's very hard to change the situation. Yet we can act against it through the courts, which are in most places in the world still objective. You can say what you want. They are not like the media, which people cut you and intervene with what you say. And still, you can have your day in court in a much better situation than you have in any other arena, whether political arena or media arena or even in the street. Bessie Center is part of the political science department at Bar-Ilan, headed by one of the professors of this department, Ephraim Inbar. He asked me to join this center not because I deal with political sciences, but because I deal with the Arab world, Arab culture, Arab history, religion means Islam, Arab societies, and he felt that he needs this aspect because this aspect is not covered usually by political sciences. So I came as an addition to Bessa Center. It's to add the Arab culture background to discussions and publications and everything which they do. Little by little, I noticed that there are many areas of the Arab world which Bessa Center does not cover because they are very thin spread anyway, and they cannot deal with Muslims in Africa, for example, or the Mahdi belief in Iran. This is not part of their realm of activity. But I kept bugging in Bar, why won't you do this? Why don't you do this? So one day he got angry at me, and he says, "Okay, go make your own center for the study of the Middle East and Islam, because I cannot deal with all these things in Bessa." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it only on condition that you are part of it." So he says, "Okay, I'll be a part of it. Go forward. I'm with you." So now we are forging or forming a new center at Bar-Ilan, the Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam,
Really?
which will deal with everything which Bessa Center doesn't deal with.
I see.
And it will be like a matrix. They will I mean Bessa Center, which I'm a member of, and many of our members are also members in Bessa, deal with political issues, strategic issues, economy, armies, power and strength of states, while we at this center will deal more with society, grassroots of society, gender issues, youth, culture, more soft things, which definitely have influence in the end of the day on the societies and the states. And today everything is very clear because of the Arab Spring, which tribalism came out from under the carpet, and religion, of course, and the sectarianism, all these things which Bessa doesn't deal with. So actually, this is what we are now standing for. However, there are many research centers in the world, in America and Europe, but unfortunately, Gulf money is buying them one after the other in order to make sure that they will not say the truth about the Arab and the Islamic world, in order to shut their mouths, and in order to make sure that whatever they publish will be according to the guidelines.
Do you want to say that again, please?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, too many research centers in the world, in America and Europe, are being bought by Gulf money in order to make sure that whatever they publish will go along the guidelines which descend upon them from the Gulf. They shouldn't say anything negative about Islam. They shouldn't say anything negative about Muslims. They shouldn't say anything negative about Islamic countries and societies and so forth. And this is how actually science is, I would say, castrated by Gulf money. And this is one of the most important reasons why we at Bar Ilan decided to create this new research center for the study of the Middle East and Islam, in order to say the truth, not to hide anything, and we promise that we'll never touch any penny which comes from the Gulf.
I
We will
see.
say the truth, and we will restrict ourselves to based truth about the world of Islam, the Arab world, and the influence which they have on other parts of the world, especially by immigration, by sending their jihadists, and by trying to silence down all those who are saying the truth in the world, by using all kinds of allegations of blasphemy and the shutting mouths, like they want to do through the United Nations, that any criticism about Islam should be criminalized, and so forth. We will say the truth in any cost, because we believe in the truth and nothing but the truth. And if the truth is agonizing for some, they should change their situation. And if there is a way to challenge Islam and to challenge the teachings of Islam by Muslims, it will be only if they feel that there is somebody out there who will expose and say the truth about what they say, what they teach, and what they try to spread all over the world. And I think that this center will make a difference in the discourse of the world regarding Islam and its influence on other societies. Unfortunately, so far we have not yet found a person who would like to have his name on the center. This is why this center is still what we call under formation. Bar Ilan agreed to create it. We have the researchers, we have the plans. I myself, in a process of writing a book about, under the title Alive and Killing Tribalism in the Modern Arab World, which I think, and I can prove it very easily, that tribalism stands behind many issues in the Arab world, which people who are not aware of what is tribalism and what the tribalism's influence on daily life, people do not understand the Middle East. They miss it. They don't get it. And I have so many proofs that I'm right about it. So I'm right now, I'm supposed until my trip in January to finish the book and to at least to submit it to be published, because this I think is essential. Many books were written about Islam, about the religion, about the beliefs, about the believers, about the ways of conduct, about sectarianism in Islam, Shia, Sunnah, all these things. Many books there are, and very many good books. Tribalism is something which people are afraid to touch. It involves anthropology, it involves sociology, it involves history, it involves research, and above everything, what Arabs say in Arabic about tribalism. Since I read Arabic and I speak Arabic and I can teach in Arabic, and I don't know what you think about my English, but my Arabic is better. All the Arab sources are an open book for me. And unfortunately, many of the researchers in the world don't have Arabic, or even if they have a very mediocre Arabic. So everything which I write will be based on what they say about themselves, what they write about their culture, what they describe or how they describe their lives in this clan framework or extended family, you can call it, all the same name or different names for the same phenomenon, which is tribalism. So this is what I dedicate my book. And this book is being written under the umbrella of this center. Well, you don't have to be a prophet in order to predict what will happen in the West Bank. The only thing which you should do is look at Gaza. What happened there? We came out of Gaza in 2005, the end of 2005, and it turned into a Hamastan, into a Hamas state, terror state. We withdrew from South Lebanon in May 2000. What became there? A Hezbollah state. Means we have already, from the recent history which everybody remembers, two very, very good examples how an area which Israel comes out from turns into an Islamic terror state, or terror zone, or terror, name it as you like. So, what can prevent that the Judea and Samaria will also join this phenomenon, as we already saw in southern Lebanon and in Gaza? Does anyone in the world have any guarantee that Judea and Samaria will not turn into a Hamas state? And everybody has to bear in mind that Hamas won the first and so far the last legislative elections in the Palestinian Authority. It was in January 2006 when Hamas won some 70% of the seats of the Palestinian Legislative Council. Who can prevent that it will happen again? It happened already. So we don't have to be a prophet. And what happened in Gaza in June 2007, when Hamas took over Gaza by fire, blood, and tears, shooting dead many of those PLO activists and policemen and so forth, the same scenario can repeat itself on Judea and Samaria. Who in the White House or in any other place in the world or in the State Department has any guarantee that such a thing cannot happen again? So, unfortunately, neither Israelis nor Americans, they don't see this development, which in my view is much more than possible. It is the scenario which everybody should take in account as the most probable scenario which will happen. So why in the world Israel should allow another Hamas state being established under the umbrella of the PLO temporarily? Because in the Middle East, you can sign an agreement with one, let's say somebody, to find in the morning that you are in bed with somebody else, as what happened in Gaza. We signed the Oslo agreement with the PLO to find that Gaza became a Hamas state. And everybody remembers what Rabin, the late Rabin, said, that we are going towards the Oslo agreements, which were signed almost 20 years ago, that we are going to have PLO here, so PLO will take care of Hamas without, as we say in Hebrew, without Bagatz and without B'Tselem. Means without the Supreme Court, which limits all the Israeli, let's say, steps against Hamas, and without the NGOs here and everywhere who are against Israel, against whatever Israel is doing in order to survive. So the PLO will come based on the Oslo agreements, and the PLO will do the dirty job to us by taking care of Hamas without the Supreme Court being watching upon him, and without the NGOs of the human rights in the world. This is how Rabin sold this agreement to the Israeli people. What happened in 2005, Hamas took care of the PLO without the Supreme Court and without the NGOs. And Hamas actually did whatever they do in the Middle East in order to take an area over, and they killed those PLO activists and policemen, as we see today in Syria or wherever. So this is the Middle East, unfortunately. And now the question is, how come the Israelis and the Americans as well do not see this scenario, which is, as I said, much more than possible? I would say this is some kind of deterministic development, because it already happened in southern Lebanon and in Gaza.
They refer to us, the enemy, the Islamic enemy, refers to America as the great Satan and Israel as the little Satan. So never mind what they call us. In reality, we are tied together militarily, technologically, ideologically. We are very close in many ways, even though we're worlds apart geographically. What do you think that Israel could do, and by extension, America watching Israel's leadership in the war against radical Islam? What can Israel do to help stem the tide in their geography, in their area?
First of all, it's not only what Israel can do, it's what Israel does. There is a very, very tight cooperation between Israel and the United States, between agencies in Israel and agencies in the United States, between units and intelligence. There is a very, very close cooperation between the two countries. Many things are going back and forth between the agencies and the organizations, like not on a daily basis, and not only on hourly basis. Every minute, there are messages which are being sent from side to side, every side to its counterpart on the other side, of information, analysis, and maybe actions as well. So I think that, and of course, everything is behind the scenes. Nobody really sees it. Nobody publishes it. Thank goodness. And I am always, whenever anything is being published by this Snowden guy, who revealed all the secrets or many of the secrets of the NSA, I always try to find out whether these secrets, which he made open or made public, contain anything which is connected to Israel, was acquired by Israel, or was given to the Americans by Israel, or is a fruit of the cooperation between Israel and the United States. So far, I didn't find anything like this. But this collateral damage which he is doing, definitely Israel can be part of the victims of his craziness by going and saying the most sensitive secrets to everybody. And this is why what he did cannot be forgiven. This is something, and I spent 25 years in the Israeli intelligence. Nobody heard a word, neither from me nor from my colleagues, and definitely you don't see these things coming from the Israeli intelligence, although many people serve there and they go in the world, and people understand that if you start talking, you actually give in your colleagues and your state and your society and your parents and your relatives in Israel, you give them in to the worst enemies by giving those secrets. Unfortunately, Snowden didn't learn it, or didn't grasp it, or was not educated to think in a way that he cannot drill a hole in the ship where he is also a passenger. And let everybody die, and this actually what drives, as much as I understand, this man. And, between me and you, I'm still rather, let's say, curious. How come he's still alive? Wasn't there any way how to shorten his life expectancy in a radical way? Of course, not to kill him, but to do something which he will leave us alone for good and very soon. So, look, I'm not trying to incite anybody against anybody, but I think that a state which honors itself cannot allow such a man to go in the world and expose all the secrets of such a state. And you know what? If democracy, as a kind of freedom of speech system, cannot become a total mayhem when everybody reveals all the secrets of the state, and democracy, if it doesn't defend itself, it is a democracy in suicide. And sometimes I do wonder whether Israel, United States, and other countries in the world, whether they are democracies in defense or democracies on a suicide course. Unfortunately, a state which allows people like Snowden to sit wherever they are and to reveal its most sensitive secrets, I tend to believe that this country is a democracy on a suicide track.
Are they aware of the danger of an Islamic caliphate? Is it anything we should be concerned about within the next 10 to 50 years?
Well, let me refer you to an article which I published like 3 weeks ago, the Islamic plan of the State Department. I claim that to have the Islam ruling Iraq since 2003, to have the Hamas ruling the Palestinian Authority since 2006, that the election of Morsi, that ousting Gaddafi and having the Islamists take his place, that the pressures maintained on the King Abdullah of Jordan to allow the Muslim Brotherhood to enter the Jordanian political arena are all a plan tailored by the State Department of the United States of America. And I repeat, the Islamism of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East is something which was planned behind the scenes by the State Department. Why? As of September 11, 2001, Americans in general and the State Department in particular are wondering and asking even explicitly, why do they hate us, those Islamists? Why we Americans are giving them money, we give them food, we give them technology, we give them tractors, we give them whatever they need. Why the heck do they hate us? The answer, which Americans gave to themselves, was, and maybe still is, that we Americans support all those dictators who are actually acting against those peoples. Mubarak, Gaddafi, Assad, both father and son, Erdogan, Ben Ali in Tunisia, all those are our friends and allies. This is why those peoples who live in those countries hate us, because we are behind the dictators who kill them in the dungeons of their mukhabarat, the intelligence, those corrupt people who sucked the blood of those peoples. And since this is why everybody hates us, America, because we are behind Mubarak and so forth. We Americans should find another agent in that part of the world to take over, to kick out all those dictators, which we can throw under the bus, and those Islamists are the best, let's say, political or social group, because they are legitimate, they are not corrupt, they are viewed as legitimate rulers or government people for the peoples. They are responsive to the yearns of those peoples. Let's have them take over. Let's kick out all the dictators, and we'll facilitate the Muslim Brotherhood, whatever they are, in order to enable them to take the regime wherever they can. So what happened in all these countries during the last 12 years, or 10 years, was supported behind the scenes by the Americans, by the State Department, not the White House as long as Bush was there, but definitely the White House since Obama took over the White House in January 2009. Now the State Department have a president who shares the same ideas as the State Department. And what happened until a month ago was a tremendous success of the American plan, which actually took place in Gaza and in Egypt and in Libya and in Iraq, all those Islamists who came to power after America either toppled directly those rulers or indirectly. What happened last month is that the army, or the Egyptian army, decided that enough is enough. And the plan to create a Muslim Brotherhood Middle East cannot continue anymore. Now, how do I know that there is such a plan? There is a clip which was published by Memory of Safwat al-Hijaz, and cleric, an Egyptian cleric, who says that we should, means the Arabs, we should pretty soon see the United Arab States. And this is the term which he uses. Means he took the American idea of the United States of America and he translates it to the United States of the Arab world. He uses the same term for the name of the state. Means, and this will be under the Khilafah, means under the Caliphate of Morsi. Means he heard this somewhere. He got this idea from somewhere who came to the Middle East to convince those Muslim Brotherhood, you guys take over, we are behind you, and you can create under our aegis or our support, you can create the United States of the Arab world under the aegis of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Caliphate, which they will renew. Now, not only this, there was another plan, or I would say even a plot, by Hamas, Morsi, and the State Department. And this is something which this is some kind of scoop. Let me give it to you. The issue starts in Syria. As you know, Syria is in a civil war since 2.5 years ago. One of the victims of this civil war is the Palestinian refugees who are in Syria since 1948, most of them in a refugee camp, giant refugee camp near Damascus named Yarmouk refugee camp. Since the hostilities started in Syria, the regime expected that the Palestinians will support the regime because of all those years which the regime hosted the Palestinians and nourished them and sponsored them and allowed Hamas and all the fronts function from the Syrian soil. So the regime expected the Palestinian refugees will support the regime. However, the rebels in Syria also expected that they will be supported by Palestinian refugees because they are both Sunnis. And the regime is Alawi, which is a splinter which came out from the Shia body. So definitely they expected that the Sunni Palestinian refugees will support the Sunni population of Syria against the Alawi. So the refugees became between the regime's rock and the population's hard place. So most of them ran away to Jordan, to Turkey, to Lebanon, to Iraq, to Egypt, to other countries as well. And Hamas today are viewing it as some kind of a danger on the Palestinian cause. Because if there are no refugees anymore, because they are dispersed all over the world, there will not be a Palestinian refugee problem. The problem will be solved. What can we do about this?
Double refugees.
In order to rescue them so they're not killed, and to preserve the Palestinian refugee problem. So the Hamas went to Morsi some months ago, and they agreed that Morsi will give Hamas the northern part of Sinai in order to bring all those Palestinian refugees who had to flee Syria from Jordan, to bring them, and from Lebanon, from Turkey, from Iraq, from Egypt, from wherever they went, to the northern part of Sinai, to have some kind of lease of the land from Egypt. Egypt will get the money for this lease, and infrastructure will be built for those Palestinian refugees so they can live. Houses, pipelines, sewage, electricity, workplaces, all this infrastructure. Who will pay for this? America. So everybody will love America for rescuing the Palestinians from being slaughtered by the regime, and for keeping the Palestinian problem bleeding from Sinai. Morsi will win the sympathy of the Palestinians and many others in the world because he rescued those Palestinian refugees from being slaughtered by the regime. Hamas will thank him, of course, because he rescued the Palestinian cause. The Egyptians will love him because this will be the opportunity to get rid of Palestinians who came to Egypt. They can be kicked to Sinai. So everybody will love everybody. And of course, everybody will love America for sponsoring this plan. Now, the Egyptian army discovered this plan months ago. And the Egyptian army waited for the opportunity to get rid of Hamas. And the opportunity came in the 30th of June, the year when Morsi came to power, and the demonstrations, what happened in the Tahrir Square. And after 3 days of demonstrations, which in my view were encouraged by the army came to Morsi and told him go home or go to jail or whatever he is. So, and the army did it in order to prevent this scenario of giving the northern part of Sinai to Hamas and to the Palestinians because this is an Egyptian soil, and the Egyptian army will never agree to accept that its soil is being given for free or not for free to other countries in the world. And this is actually a slam in the face of the American plan to have the Muslim Brotherhood reign wherever they can in this time being. We can speak about all these things.
The Muslim Brotherhood infiltration in America?
Oh yeah, I wrote a whole article about this. You can find it in the website of the Middle East Forum.
The Muslim Brotherhood headed for a blow-up? I have your list of articles here.
You can, no, it's Sharia and Violence in American Mosques. This is the title.
A little bit further back, okay.
It was published. It was published by a colleague of mine, David Yerushalmi,
Okay.
and myself.
Okay.
So if you Google Yerushalmi Kedar, you'll find it because it's the only thing which we wrote together.
You got it.
And MEF, Middle East Forum, of course. Right. This article actually created a whole wave of reactions, whether pro and against. Because it is something which is not politically correct to talk about the infiltration of Islam to America. And you know what? Let me tell you, if America will not start functioning as a democracy in defense, political correctness will kill America after political correctness killed Europe. And America is behind Europe in a time lapse of 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, because whatever you see today in America was in Europe 15 years ago. And therefore, what you see today in Europe regarding the Islamists will be in the States 15 years from today, if America doesn't watch it. Watches who comes in, watches what happens in mosques, what happens. Look, I'll give you a good example. In this survey, we found a booklet in New York, in one of the mosques in New York, under the title, "What should you do when you are framed or arrested by the racist, fascist, criminal FBI, or by the racist, fascist, criminal police?" And it is published by I think some Islamic publishing house in New York, and the author is some Abdallah, Sheikh Abdallah, something, I forgot the name. And this booklet, what should you do when you are arrested or framed by the racist, fascist, criminal FBI, is disseminated for free in American mosques in New York, not in the moon. A democracy which allows such a thing is a democracy on a suicide course. I don't have any better expression. First of all, Israel is a bastion of knowledge, of know-how in many, many, many areas which Israel can help any researcher, any research group, any research center, anywhere in the States to cooperate with Israel and to take advantage of the Israeli know-how. You read this book, Startup Nation, which explained the whole thing. How could we, Jews, after we were burned in Europe, and they had wars, constant wars in this Middle East, how could we develop such a spirit of incentives and initiatives and startups and all these things? Israelis think from out of the box. And this is actually what we can teach Americans, who are usually very restricted to regulations and to work by the book and do what you should do and don't do what you shouldn't do. We Israelis are totally different in our mindset, because whenever we see a problem, we don't try to face it or to deal with this. We just go around it, because we are small, we are weak, and if we had to fight every problem which we face, we would not stay here. This is why we try always the way around the problem rather than dealing with the problem, because sometimes it's too complicated, too dangerous, and too expensive. So this is what I think Americans can learn from Israel. And we also educate our youngsters to take the initiative, not to be, as we say in Hebrew, small head. Be big head, means think big, lead, go forward. Don't wait to others to push you or to drag you. Drag others. And especially people learn this spirit when they are in the army, when they have to lead a group of soldiers, when on the ground, on the battleground, you, the second lieutenant, you are the commander of the army, because here you are the only one who knows the situation. You are the only one who sees the enemy. Nobody from anywhere else can give you any advice. You know your situation. Take decisions, take responsibility, and take the authority. And we give it big time to young officers in the battlefield. You are the chief of staff. You take decisions in your area where you have to fight. There will be casualties. Okay, there is no war for free. You pay for this. Yet you have the authority to take decisions. Go forward. We are behind you, and we will never leave you. We'll try to support you. We'll try to come as fast as we can. You go and deal with the problem in the way you choose. So this is the message to our, let's say, young fighters. And after 4 years of service in the army, they go to the high-tech or to the other industries or the academia, wherever they go. And they still carry this burden of responsibility, accountability, and maturity. because you are a big boy, you have the authority, you go take decisions. So this boy, who is, let's say, 22 years old, has to lead a group of 20 soldiers from point A to point B, where they have to cross minefields, where they have to cross a river, when they have to cross a hostile area, when they have to do whatever they have to do. He has to do it, he has the authority, and he has, therefore, the responsibility to do this thing, and he can invent whatever he likes. He can build a ship, he can build a dock, he can build whatever he like within the possibilities which he have on the ground, and nobody will say, hey, you did what you didn't have to do. Yes, if he accomplished the mission which he has to do, nobody really checks how he did it, and why? Because he had the authority to do this, and nobody should check him, and nobody should challenge. Why did you go this way? Why did you go the other way? He did because he took decisions, and he had to take decisions, and he's supposed to take decisions, and everybody expects him to take decisions, although he is a 22-year-old second lieutenant. Okay, this is what I mean, but on the ground, he is the chief of staff. Later, when they get out of the army, he goes to some company, whatever. He learns, but he carries this mentality of responsibility and authority. So when he comes to the high tech, he sees a problem. He says, hey, why do I have to fight it? Because I have not enough resources. I will go around it. Okay, the same mindset which helped him to achieve his goals and his objectives in the battlefield, in the army, are now leading him, the same mindset, in the high tech. And when he becomes an entrepreneur, he will always run 2 steps forward before all those others who are running with a book in their hands. He doesn't have a book. You know what? He doesn't know how to read in many cases because he was dyslexic. But he became a leader on the ground in the army. Now he's a leader in the industry. This, I think, what Israelis can show the Americans. When you have to shoot, guy, you shoot. Otherwise, you'll be shot at. When you have the opportunity, run forward. Do what you can. And above, don't obey any regulations. Well, don't run over people on the way, okay? Drive carefully. But when it comes to challenges, you can walk day and night until you solve those challenges. Okay, this is the spirit of what we teach our kids, our children. And this is why today Israel is the second state in NASDAQ, in the number of companies which are dealt with in NASDAQ, in the stock market. So definitely, Israel proved it. Israel, that when you decide to educate you youngsters in such a way, it can only succeed.
So,
Look, I'll give you a good example of what something which happened with me, which I can reveal. When I was still in the army, and we were always looking for ways how to circumvent problems of intelligence. I was in the intelligence. Once we had an evening in honor of one of our commanders who left, and there was a nice meal over there, which was a buffet. After some speeches, everybody went to the buffet to take his whatever he wanted. And we were lining up near the buffet, and it was waiting until you filled his plate with this and with that, and it was a very long line. Suddenly, I discovered what can be done about this. You can go on the other side of the table, of the buffet, and you don't bother anybody. You don't push anybody out. You just take another spoon, and you fill your plate, without causing any problems. Because the line, whoever wants to stand in this line, can stand in this line. Whoever wants to open another line, and both sides can take from the same table together. They don't bother each other. And this was when everybody looked at me. Hey, what this man is doing? He says, guys, you have a problem of a too long line? Go around it. And I don't bother anybody. You can take whatever you like. I take whatever I like. I don't bother you. You don't bother me. And pretty soon, like after half a minute, there was another line behind me. Okay? So sometimes, although people would stand in line, why not open another line? If there is a possibility, why should we all stand in one line? Let's say, let's stand in two lines. Meanwhile, two people are filling their plates in every given minute. So the time which we stand will be half. Okay? So this is how you solve the problem, or you circumvent the problem, other than, let's say, telling everybody, hey, go fast. Don't have to go fast. Just open another line. Okay? So this is a solution which somebody can find. It doesn't cost. It doesn't come at the expense of anybody else. Why not going? Why not doing it? So this is a little example which I can say about how we in Israel, in the Israeli army, it was in the army, how we deal with problems. You don't have to break your head to solve the problem. Just go around it. Let the problem cook itself up. Definitely.